Hello again. I'm sure that we all know that the popular racket whereby Muslim asylum seekers who found Jesus and thereby avoided deportation because their lives would be at risk if they were sent back to Afghanistan or Pakistan has been wearing a little thin lately. The man who threw drain cleaner over his wife and child after he had been given permission to stay in this country as a newly converted Christian had the effect, I'm sorry to say, of making some people cynical about such conversions. It seems, though, that just in time a new racket has been found which will enable such people to avoid being hoofed out of the country. In 2017, an Afghan asylum seeker exposed himself to a woman and began masturbating. He was promptly arrested for outraging public decency, sentenced to prison for 3 months, had his name placed on the sex offenders register, and was then recommended for deportation as a danger to the public. Straightforward and simple. No, that's how to deal in this country with asylum seekers who carry on like that. In the meantime, he continued to touch himself in front of women and behave in what is euphemistically described as an inappropriate fashion when women were around. Surely a man we can do without in this country, one would have said. He appealed against the deportation on the grounds that it would breach his human rights. How does that work, you ask? His lawyers argued successfully before an immigration tribunal that if he was sent back to Afghanistan and started pestering women there and jacking off in public, then he would run the risk of ill treatment and might even face mob violence. I dare say that's true, but why doesn't he just stop behaving like that? It seems that he is suffering from a mental illness which causes him to harass women sexually, and this strange disorder is getting worse. Of course, I'm not a psychiatrist, and for all I know to the contrary, there may genuinely be some psychiatric condition which makes a man behave in this way when women are around. One sympathises, of course, but I don't see why we should be lumbered with the problem. Surely there are clinics and specialists in Afghanistan who would be able adequately to help this poor fellow with this distressing condition from which he is suffering. Of course, it does seem likely that others are going to latch on to this gambit, though, because it appears that if somebody comes to this country from a place where he would not dare make a nuisance of himself in front of anybody's daughter, sister, or wife, for fear of having his head chopped off, then all he needs to do is whip out his willy here and hey presto, he will never be deported because of his human rights. I'll give a link to this story in the description to this video. I rather think there must be an epidemic of this particular mental illness among young men from Muslim countries who come to live in Europe, for this is not the first time that I have heard of such behaviour, not by a long chalk. One last thing strikes me, and that is that this fellow's human rights are to be protected at all costs. But what about the rights of women in this country not to be exposed to such disgusting behaviour? Have they no human rights?